On today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, the boys are back. The week of the draft, we hear from DeMeco Ryans and Stroud. What are their thoughts about Nick Caley now in the building? And DeMeco, need best player available? You tell us the truth.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, we are excited to be back with you guys. Bulls on Parade. We are your Texans Credential Media members. I'm John Hickman. That is Brian Big Sarge Barfield, H-Town on his chest, repping for the Rockets, Astros. But today we are talking Texans. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, we'll be diving into the Texans draft. Sarge, I don't know about you, but it feels like we don't know what the hell's going to go on. Unpredictable feelings throughout the NRG building right now. And I think, honestly, I think Nick and DeMeco Ryans are having fun with it with some of their messages.
For sure.
But we haven't heard from CJ Stroud in a very long time. So we get an opportunity to hear from him today. We'll talk about some of his remarks, and we'll dive into that. DeMeco Ryans, our takeaways. He kicked off the press conference on Monday afternoon, and he said some good things. Today's show is brought to you by Nissan, the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada Player of the Week later in the show. Big Sarge.
Greetings and salutations, John Hickman.
It's good to be back. It's good to be back with you to talk Texans. I'm going to just say this before we talk about the Texans. There's another pro team in Houston that needs to get their stuff together. I better not go out to another game and witness my team get down by 21 points. But
hey, don't talk about the Astros like that. Oh, my bad. You talking about the Rockets.
I'm talking about the Rockets. You know who I'm talking about. You guys are here to talk Texans and listen to us talk about the Texans. Big Sarge, you had a great question to kick off. For us to kick off today's show, you had a great question that you asked DeMeco Ryans. Let's dive into that.
At the NFL Combine, and then Nick reiterated it last week that you all don't draft for need. You draft, I guess, best player available. But how much of the need and the best player available go hand in hand when it's time for you to pick?
That's always the big talk in the draft, like need, best available. For us, we're going to take the best guy on the board. We won't just pass up a top player on our board just because we have a need at a certain position. It's okay to enhance and have a really strong position group if the draft falls that way. So you go in, there's no handcuffs on, hey, we have to draft this certain position and we're stuck at only looking at this position. No, we have a broad view of how we want to enhance our team, and it's not just looking at it, and I guess in a tight lens of it's only one way. Like we open, like if it's a position there, if it's a player that can really change our team, like we're gonna take that guy. So that's where we talk about not truly drafting for need. We want to take the best players on our board.
Sarge, great question. Even better response. Still confusing, might I add, to DeMeco Ryans in terms of needs and best player available. Dive into that a little bit more. And what are your thoughts?
One of the reasons why I asked Nick Caserio, but one of the reasons why I asked
y'all called him that at the press conference too, by the way.
Cole Thompson, friend of the show, called
him that.
Yeah, so that was a homage to Cole Thompson. But one of the reasons why I asked DeMeco that question was because that's something that he spoke about at the NFL Combine, and then something that Nick Caserio reiterated in his press conference on last week. And so I'm saying to myself, I just want it to be clear and concise on, some of what I think that they're going to do. And, when you look at it and you're saying, okay, so what if the best player available is a linebacker? Is he going to take the linebacker? What if the best player available is a tight end? Is he going to take a tight end, knowing that they need offensive line help, knowing that they need wide receiver help? And one of the things that DeMeco spoke about during the press conference was that they do need offensive help. They do need help on the offensive side of the ball. So I just asked him that question because it's starting to become a pattern, and I don't know I don't want to say that it's cap, but by the same token, I'm like, these guys know what they're doing. And,
They know what they're doing.
we've
It's
seen
draft
what,
season. It's line season. It's
yeah,
cap season.
for sure. But we've seen what these two guys and DeMeco and Nick have been able to do together. Of course, CJ Will, Kamari, Kalen, and then even getting some. I feel like some of the players that they got on the back end, which, by the way, Kim Davis, friend of the show, asked a great question about developing talent later on in the draft. These guys know what they're doing, John. And so I just wanted to be clear and concise, and I want them to give me, an answer that I can work with. And if you're going to say that we're taking the best player available and we're not taking for a position of need, then when, if they don't trade up or trade back, then the best, I'm going to be looking at the best player available when it's time for them to pick at 25. And if the best player available is a defensive tackle, the best player available is a safety, who are you going to take? Are you going to take that best player available, or are you going to take the need, which is the best player available for that need? Because that's where they're playing on words, John. That's where the semantics comes in, because of course the best player available is going to fit their need. Most 9 times out of 10, it will be an offensive lineman or a wide receiver at that spot that they could say, well, he was the best player available. We looked at Mel Kiper's top 5, Todd McShay's top 5, and these guys were in that top 5. So we decided to draft this lineman, or we decided to draft this wide receiver because they were, one of the best players available. And then, John, before you speak, let me say this. How do we know what the best player available is according to DeMeco or according to Nick? Because we can say what we feel as, hey man, this is the best player available right now. But they can look at the board, and because of the intel that they've had, and they may have had the guy in for an interview, they could be like, no, he's not the best player available for us. That's what these guys are saying. The best player for us may be this guy here. But what everybody's saying is, according to the mock drafts and things like that, this is the best player available. And it's like, that's not the best player available for the Texans. That's what they're saying, the best player available. We're looking for the best player available for the Texans.
Well, I think the tendencies speak for DeMeco Ryans and Nick Caserio. Their tendencies speak loud, and they are consistent since 2023. This will be their 3rd year drafting with one another. And so I don't think that they put a lot of they don't put a lot in other people's baskets. Like, they worry about what's going on here in Houston. So I honestly don't believe that what the consensus board is nationally matters to Houston, especially when you consider they are not a team since 2023. That was the last time they picked in the top 5. They are not a team that's not going to pick in the top 5, top 10, at least as of right now, because of the roster and how it's been put together. So I think, number one, when you look at that, the trust is there from coach to general manager to make the right decision. And also, once you get past top 10, the rest of that consensus board doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Right. The top 10 teams are the top 10 worst teams. And those are the guys that I think can more so benefit from best player available compared to need, unless it's a quarterback. And then at times you can pass up on a quarterback if that quarterback isn't worth a franchise. If he's not a franchise quarterback, like we all blame and laugh at the Jets for making Zach Wilson drafted as high as he was. That should have never happened, right? So I trust the tendencies and the consistency between DeMeco Ryans and Nick Caserio. I also believe that this is just draft season talk.
Yep.
But we played around with the idea if they go Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan at 25, D tackle to help boost up that defensive line. That's a conversation that we've had. Another good thing that I came away from DeMeco Ryans' press conference, and there was a lot of good things, but Landry Locker, 2 weeks in a row, man, asking some great questions. He asked DeMeco Ryans about the development process of players.
The culture, given the fact that a lot of the kids that you're talking to are younger and they're not fully developed, is there any development in when you talk to them? They might not be what you completely want right now, but they can develop into that?
The one thing I always tell my coaches is we're here for a reason. We're coaches, right? You're here to teach. You're here to develop and grow young men. And that's our job and something we should all take pride in. Like, you don't want a finished product. No one's a finished product. A lot of the guys we're talking to are 21 years old. Where were we when we were all 21, right? We've all grown a lot since being 21, right? In a lot of different areas. And it's the same thing, the same mindset and approach you take when you're drafting a young guy. How are you going to help? You know, where of course he has the talent. He wouldn't be getting drafted if he didn't have the talent. He has that talent. So now what are you doing as a coach, as a teacher to enhance his skill set, make him better, give him more tools to work with, put in his tool belt so he can become better as a player, but also as a man off the field. And that's where coaches really shine. The coaches who can develop guys and help them maximize their potential, those are the coaches who are really great and they stick around the league for a long time.
Yeah, man. If it wasn't for COVID, Cole Popovich would have been sticking around the league for a long time. He would have never had to go back to high school. And mentioning, great coaches that stick around for a while, Chris Strausser is out. Now, he was around the NFL for a very long time, but what I'm getting at and I'm alluding to is I think this was a response from a great question and maybe an even better response to it is still up to us to maximize these young men. Too many times, players coming to the NFL, especially when you look at round 1, round 2 guys, round 3 at the top. When you get to round 4, you may find you a gem here or there, but these guys coming to the league, big names, from big programs, and the expectation is they're going to do big things. But how many times have we had the conversation of either the system not fitting, the coaching staff not working out, the coaching staff from the head coach down, taking away or limiting what made a player great? And I think for the Houston Texans, they have been able to hit on cornerback, right? Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter, safety, Kalen Bullock, right? Linebacker. You look at one of the better developing coaches on the defensive side of the ball in DeMeco Ryans. In back-to-back years, we have high expectations for linebackers that were, mid to late round picks, right? Where it gets tricky for Houston is offensive line, and let's be frank, wide receiver. You were one of the few people that mentioned Ben McDaniels in his role with the offense last year. So this is where, for the Texans this year, you talk about what do you want to see from C.J. Stroud differently. What do we want to see from the Texans overall differently this year? Is just better overall coaching. When we come back, Sarge, we got to dive into C.J. Stroud, who has some great things to say.
Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Plus Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With the Wi-Fi 6/6E and auto low latency mode advanced technology, Fire Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds and your need to stay competitive. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Already have a console? A Fire Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take you or your kids' games wherever you plug in. Head to Amazon.com Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen.
Bobby, your first 2 years coming into the league, and I know that you all were also close. What are some of the things that you've learned from him that you can use further on in your career?
Yeah, Bobby's taught me a lot about just, like ownership, taking real ownership on your job and making sure that, like you're doing what you need to do, play in and play out, and that's something I think that I got better at as I kept going, like learning what everybody's doing. He challenged me on that a lot, motions and different formations and just all the nine. And I think it's just cool just to have, somebody who, you know, came from San Fran and came here and learned more, and to see him open up our second year and to see him try to like learn new things and stuff. It was dope to see. So I'm always gonna be a fan of Bobby Slug, and I think he has a lot of great things that he's done and will do in his career in coaching, and I'm excited to see. So yeah, man, I'm just really appreciative of our time together, and definitely rooting him on. All right, Sean.
Welcome back to Monday's edition of the Locked On Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. John, that was CJ Stroud responding to the question that I asked him about what he learned from former offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick. And I will say this. I asked CJ that question because even though Bobby gets a very bad rap for his time here, and of course, some of that was some self-inflicted wounds as well, there were some good things that Bobby Slowick did here, and there were some good times that he had with CJ Stroud. I mean, that first year was amazing. I mean, that first year got almost, got CJ's name.
Got Bobby with some head coaching interviews, opportunities.
Right. And then the come the second year, all of a sudden some things may have went downhill. But I don't want people to think that Bobby Slowick didn't do good while he was here in Houston. And it was also an opportunity for CJ Stroud to show how mature he is and what type of leader he is by speaking about some of the positive things that Bobby Slowick taught him. I mean, we always talk all the time about how the negative things that Bobby did as far as the play calling and things like that. But CJ is the one that had to deal with him on a consistent one-on-one basis. And like I said, some of the things and I knew that Bobby and CJ had a very close relationship, and there was some things that they seen eye to eye on, and there was some things that they didn't see eye to eye on. And anytime, and you don't get along with all your family members. There's not anybody out there that can say, I get along with every one of my cousins, aunties, anybody. You can't say that you get along with all your family members. So you're gonna have the disagreements. And so I wanted CJ to be able to, talk about that, John.
Yeah, no, that was a good question, honestly, because I think it's kind of a good ending to a story, right? You close the chapter on that book in your life in a positive way, and I think it allows for the fans, the media, to kind of move on from Bobby, right? In a good way. Like, your quarterback didn't have anything bad to say, and to be fair to both sides, I mean, CJ is never going to have anything bad to say, at least publicly. But to give him some credit, I thought was really good. And for us to be this to be the first time that we've heard from CJ Stroud, that response again just kind of can put that chapter to rest and move forward.
Yeah.
And so I like that. And on the flip side, asking him about Bobby Slowick, CJ had an opportunity to be asked about, the offensive expectations and the direction now with Nick Caley, and this is what he had to say.
CJ, you said that talks with Nick about the system has been really preliminary so far, but just from what you've picked up from him, kind of how do you feel about the offense and how it fits kind of your game going forward?
Yeah, I mean, he comes from LA and New England, and he's gonna bring some of that swag over here. So, that kind of is what I'm used to, is taking control and being a little more pre-snap, having tools to put my guys in the best position. And that's, something that we really didn't work on these last 2 years. But even those principles I learned from, and it made me better because it added a new element to my game. So, be able to, just get better and learn from, what he did with, New England and LA will definitely help me, because I feel, those are two schemes that I'm, kind of used to, in a sense. Like, that's kind of what I ran at Ohio State, what kind of New Orleans does a little bit, and in LA, it's kind of what we ran here these last 2 years. So I'll be able to, put my swag on it and have fun with it. And he's all about, me taking full ownership and running the show, and that's what I want. So I'm gonna get what I want, and that's really been really cool just to see that he's like bought into me, and he doesn't really know me well yet. So He talked about today having blind trust, and I have a lot of trust in him already. Just how he talks and how he presents in the room and things like that is really cool to see.
Yeah, blind trust. I have a lot of trust in him already. He also mentioned, "I'm gonna get what I want."
Yeah.
And as much as that was a nice response to Bobby Sloyd, right? I think that somewhat is a direct shot to the ups and downs of last year, right? I don't want to call it shade, but you know, we talked about this throughout the year, dating back to training camp. How much of this version of CJ has been put into the box a little bit, right? Because of a system and the belief in that system can work. And so that response to me, man, like, coming from LA, New England, he's going to bring some of the things, like he mentioned, all of that, just getting better. To me, that response was just very encouraging to hear, something that we've talked about here on this show. Sarge, you personally have brought up Caley and given more responsibilities to CJ Stroud to maximize his game, right? Put him on his plate. That has been something that you have really talked about and looked at that idea of the difference between Bobby and Nick Caley now, right? In terms of responsibility. And for me personally, Caley getting Stroud back to a place offensively where he's back in that Ohio State comfortability form, right? And which would honestly for CJ will go back to his first year and an offense that'll create easier opportunities consistently. I thought last year it was too much. It was harder for receivers to get open, and because of the limitations in terms of talent and because of the limitations in terms of receivers that were just naturally able to get open consistently downfield, Houston never did anything different to make the job easier, to scheme up a way to get those guys open. And I think more so for Xavier Hutchinson when everything broke down. And then early in training camp, Bobby Sloyd just kind of making CJ's job a little bit difficult because he's forced him to go through every progression, every read, even missing throws that are wide open. So it comes off as Nick Caley and CJ will be on the same page. And that same page will be, hey, listen, make my job easier. I'll make your job easier. We'll make everybody else's job easier around us in terms of the passing game. I'm going to give you pre-snap accountability. I'm going to be able to allow you to have a full control of this offense so you are able to do the things that make you comfortable. A comfortable CJ Stroud is a swag CJ Stroud. A swag CJ Stroud is a fun CJ Stroud. A fun CJ Stroud, you are getting a top 6 quarterback in the NFL. And that's something the Houston Texans did not get a chance to experience a lot last year.
John, I hear what you're saying. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I'm also going to give a little pushback on that. And the reason why I say that is because, like, this is year 3 for CJ, right?
Yes.
And when you look at a lot of development of quarterbacks, year 3 is the year that you can really assess on what they're going to be.
I agree.
His rookie year, he was what he was. His sophomore year, he was what he was. This year, year 3, he has that. He has what he's learned from the first 2 years, taking it into year 3. And I will say this: no one. I mean, we can't. In hindsight, it's 2020. We don't know what Bobby Slowick had planned for year 3. CJ Stroud. We don't know what Bobby Slowick had as far as maybe tweaking some of the offenses. Because look, for as much as we criticize Bobby Slowick, we also have to remember he was a first-time offensive coordinator as well. So.
Fair.
Everything that he's learning on the fly, which is like, well, CJ alluded to that, but everything that he was learning in his first 2 years, CJ was learning in his first 2 years. Who would have known by year 3 they maybe would have gotten it right? The Houston Texans decided to move on, and before anybody jumps into the YouTube comments and say, "Oh, Sarge, you're caping for Bobby Slowick." No, I'm not caping for Bobby Slowick. I'm just saying Bobby Slowick may have had a 3-year plan in place, and whatever that plan looked like. Also, John, what? Oh, I was gonna say. Also, what would it look like if year 2 of Bobby Slowick's plan would have included a full year of Nico, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell? Like if he's right, if he's able to have
Jordan
all
as
those
well.
things, yeah, Brevin Jordan as well, and Joe Mixon, a full healthy season. And so I just want to say that I understand what the full ownership and the swag and this, but at this point, John, I'm going to be honest with you. Right now, it's just all lip service to me because I don't know what Nick Caley can do. And everybody keeps trying to say, this is what Nick Caley's going to do. And I'm saying, I understand that, but it's the uncertainty because Bobby Slowick was the first time offensive coordinator. Nick Caley is a first-time offensive coordinator. So I don't expect him to come in and be Sean McVay or Kevin O'Connell or Ben Johnson or anything like that. He's going to make mistakes too. And when he makes those mistakes with the year 3 CJ, they're going to be glaring. They're going to a lot.
I want to respond to that when we come back because I like that. I like that pushback, so I'll respond to that on the other side. And then we'll talk about the unpredictability of Houston and their draft right now. It's just crazy, right? So we got more Locked On Texans on the other side. The Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're taking a look at our draft prospects to pick one guy that stands apart, the guy we believe showcases the strength, the power to push the team, the Houston Texans, forward as we look ahead to next season. And this week, Armada and clear-cut Player of the Week, and this comes on the heels of not knowing what the Houston Texans are going to do. Honestly, Kenneth Grant with the number 25 overall pick. And I'll say that, man, listen, right now, Houston does still need an inside anchor. Do they need an inside anchor more than the offensive line? No. More than another weapon or two on the outside? No. But with how the talks of the NFL draft have been playing out for Houston over the last couple of weeks in both Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans echoing best player available, you look at Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, heavy-duty player, can command the middle, can control the middle, can create that pressure on the inside, and you also look at how what he does benefits the linebackers, also how that would benefit Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. This is one of those moves for a defensive-minded head coach where you can go big, dream big, and do it all with your defense. I'm already a top 10 defense in the NFL. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what I think Kenneth Grant for the Houston Texans can do. It's clear cut that Kenneth Grant is already ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can with the all-new Nissan Armada and any of their outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder. Go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. It's draft week.
Yeah.
So it's one of those times of the year where it can feel like Christmas for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Or if you guys are on prospects, it can feel like all green for prospect users. But to push back to your CJ Stroud, Nick Caley point, I do want to say this. While I am looking at this relationship in year one being 50-50, I am looking at it to be fair a little bit 45-55 on CJ Stroud. Because he said something, I can get what I want. That's what he said. He also said that he trusts me and I trust him. So obviously the preliminary conversations they've been having and playbook studies that they've been having, obviously they've been going good for CJ to come out and say, these are some of the things that I did at Ohio State that made me successful. That's one thing that stood out. I can get what I want, right? He also mentioned that New England, LA, two teams that, Sarge, how many times have we heard CJ Stroud mention those two teams, whether it's in post-game press conferences or for you throughout the week when you guys are getting able to opportunity to talk to him? Yeah. Right. So when you look at all of those things, it's favor right now for CJ Stroud. It's a lot of favor for him. So if things are not necessarily working out consistently with Nick Caley, this is for year 3, where I do look at CJ Stroud and all of the things that favor you and your strengths for you to kind of overcome, for CJ to overcome and make plays and get guys the ball and not overthrow guys and not oversell passes like we saw him do towards the end of the year because of just bad mechanics and a bad offensive line play.
In the first year system, though, in the first year system with a first year play caller, first time play caller. See, because I hear what he says about, like, you're looking at what the Rams did, you're looking at what New England did, but Nick Caley didn't call any of those offenses. He just knows the concepts of
and
those.
this is why I say I'm 45-55 on CJ.
So that's what I'm saying. Now you're taking a third year quarterback, putting him into a second system. There's a lot of times, John, when we look at what the New England Patriots did with Tom Brady. They developed that system around Tom Brady, and Tom Brady was in that system for a very long time, right? Even when they got Matthew Stafford over in Los Angeles, when they brought him in, even though he was already a seasoned quarterback, a veteran quarterback, had been in the league for a while, they still built that system around him. So if they're going to build this system around CJ Stroud, which it looks like that's what they're going to do, you also got to be able to work out some of the kinks, some of the nuances in it, some of the newness in it, because not only is CJ Stroud learning a new offense, you got new offensive linemen that has to learn a new offense. You got tight ends, running backs, wide receivers. They all have to be on the same page, and you would like to see that early in training camp, but we don't know. The unknown.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I think DeMeco Ryan said, be where your feet are. Be in the moment, be present. They can't get on the field, but one thing that they can do right now that nobody has really talked about, and maybe because it's just natural in football, is master the playbook.
Yep.
And so, but the Texans draft, it equals unpredictable. Sarge, I don't know, man. I just think a lot of this talk is smoke.
Yeah.
I think Houston right now is playing the game. I don't want to call it dangerous, and we don't have a lot of time, but I think the game that they're playing is we are going to just have a lot of smoking for the other 31 teams. If you want to invite yourself inside of that, well, let us know what your price is.
Yeah.
Do you want 25 because there's a player that you like? Or are we going to force a player sliding down maybe to us because other teams feel like we got to hop on a certain player? But there's no way around Houston. I can't fathom them with their first two picks not going offensive line or wide receiver in either order.
Well, John, real quickly, I'm going to harken back to what we talked about earlier when you brought up the question that Landry brought in and DeMeco's response. And John, I feel like it is the team's responsibility to develop these players. But John, in this day and age, in this day and time, it might be a little bit different because you got the transfer portal that's causing a lot of these players not to get established at certain universities. So they're hopping
players in the transfer portal.
They're hopping from school to school. Where back in the day, if you got a player coming out of Alabama, you know exactly what Nick Saban was teaching them. You knew if you got him out of Florida, you knew what Urban Meyer was doing. You know in Ohio State, you knew what Urban Meyer was doing. You know what is Jim Harbaugh that used to coach at Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh, coaching at Michigan. You knew what you were getting because these players were in this system for a long time. Now it's hard to develop because if I'm getting a player that's the best player available, but he's coming out of he's been in two different schools, two different systems. Now I'm saying to myself, I can look at your fundamentals, but it still may take me a little time to break the habits that you learn at your first college and your second college, sometimes even your third college. So I just feel like that's why I asked the question about the interviews at the draft combine and at the 30 visits when you're getting to know these players, because now you know what you're getting coming inside the building.
I really think that plays into a player's favor, though. Multiple systems on the offensive side of the ball.
Does it?
I think so. That's a conversation I would love to continue to have later in the week. But I think it gives players an opportunities to kind of deal with some of the early struggles that some players have to deal with when you get to the NFL. Multiple systems, guys in and out. How will you adjust? And so I think that's a bonus for players right now in college if they get an opportunity to actually play. We are seeing too many guys just up and leave because of the competition and where
we're going to bring this back.
We got to bring that back
for sure.
But what I will say is I don't know what the Texans going to do in this draft. And for the rest of the week, I'm not going to pretend to know. I don't want to do no mock draft. I don't want to do no I don't want to play around. I'm gonna just enjoy the draft and wait to see the pick.
CJ said blind trust. That's what you have to have in Nick Caserio because he is a guy that you cannot predict. He's not predictable. He's unpredictable.
Very unpredictable. Thank you guys for watching today's show. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube and give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Give me a follow and a holla on Twitter as well at John_Hickman12.
And make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with the Z at the end.
Until next time, ladies and gents, Texan fans across the nation, peace.